Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're embarking on what I think is a really fascinating journey inside what we often call the black box of automatic speech recognition, or ASR, systems. For most of us, ASR is simply the tech that turns our spoken words into text. Pretty straightforward on the surface.
Right.
But imagine for a moment not just seeing that final text output, but actually understanding how these systems get there. Layer by intricate layer, what's really going on inside.
That's a great way to put it. And this deep dive is all about something called mechanistic interpretability.
Okay.
It's a field that's brought huge insights into large language models, and now we're seeing these same methods applied systematically to ASR.
So bringing that LLM understanding over to speech.
Kind of, yeah. We'll be looking at some really groundbreaking new research that adapts these techniques. It aims to reveal the previously unknown internal dynamics of modern ASR systems.
And figuring out how they actually handle sound and meaning.
How acoustic and semantic information truly evolves as signals move through these complex networks.
Our mission today, then, is to unpack the insights from a key paper, Beyond Transcription, Mechanistic Interpretability in ASR by Glaser and colleagues, and we're focusing on two specific models, right?
That's right. First, Whisper Large v3. That's a well-known, robust encoder-decoder ASR system.
Okay.
And second, Qwen2 Audio 7B Instruct. This one's a large audio language model, and it's interesting because it combines a frozen whisper encoder with a separate, powerful language model.
So two different approaches. Should be some interesting comparisons. Get ready for, what the paper suggests are some genuinely surprising revelations about what these models do under the hood. Much more than just transcribing.
Definitely.
So let's start unpacking this. The core idea seems to be that models like Whisper are doing a lot more behind the scenes than just that speech-to-text conversion.
Right.
This research used linear probing to uncover hidden knowledge. Could you walk us through what that actually means?
Certainly. Think of linear probing as a kind of gentle investigation. You're trying to ask the model, hey, what do you know about this specific thing? But without retraining the whole model.
Okay, like a non-invasive check.
Sort of. You train very simple classifiers, tiny little detectors, almost directly on the model's internal activations.
The signals inside the network.
The numerical patterns, the sort of internal chatter happening as it processes sound. The accuracy of these probes then tells you how clearly specific attributes are encoded.
Attributes like?
Like speaker gender, or maybe that accent or background noise. Things the model wasn't explicitly trained to output, but the probe's success shows the information is represented internally.
So it finds signals in the model's hidden thoughts.
That's a good analogy. And a really striking example comes from the Whisper encoder.
Okay.
At layer 25, these linear probes could identify speaker gender with 94.6% accuracy. Really quite high.
Wow. And how does that compare to just, say, asking the model about gender based on its text?
Well, that's the interesting part. If you just asked Qwen2 Audio to determine gender from its textual output alone, it only managed 87.8% accuracy.
So Whisper knows the gender internally much better than Qwen2 can guess from the words.
It strongly suggests that, yes, Whisper's internal processing holds more nuanced information about the audio than what gets explicitly shown in the final transcription. The knowledge is definitely in there, deep down.
That distinction feels important. The model as a richer observer than we might think. And it wasn't only gender, was it?
No, not at all. The Whisper encoder, a bit further up at layer 27, also showed a strong ability to tell apart clean and noisy speech environments. It hit 90.0% accuracy there.
So it's gauging the recording quality, too.
Seems like it. It demonstrates the model isn't just focused on the words, it's also aware of the acoustic context, almost like doing an internal sound quality assessment.
Interesting. What else?
Well, they also looked into speaker accent. At encoder layer 22, the model achieved a very high 97.0% average accuracy, classifying 4 different accent groups: New Zealand, Welsh Valleys, South African, and Indian.
97%. That's impressive.
It is. And again, this indicates that detailed accent information is consistently present and readable from these intermediate audio representations. Not something the ASR is meant to report, but the info is encoded.
So putting this together, these ASR models are capturing this incredibly rich tapestry of information speaker details, environment noise, accent, embedding it deep within their layers. It goes way beyond just the words.
It's like they build a detailed, multidimensional profile of the audio signal itself.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Talk about a common frustration with ASR hallucinations.
Ah, yes. A known challenge.
Where the model just generates incorrect or sometimes totally made-up text, Even for silence or noise, right?
That happens, yes. And this research tackled a critical question. Can we actually predict these failures before they happen? Can we see them coming from inside the model?
That would be huge. So can we? Can you detect a hallucination brewing internally?
The study explored predicting them by examining the decoder's residual stream.
The residual stream, remind me what that is.
Think of it as the main pathway for information flowing through the decoder, layer by layer. It carries the core signal being processed.
Got it.
And linear probes applied to Whisper's decoder residual stream at layer 22 could predict high word error rate, or WER, transcriptions with 93.4% accuracy.
And high word is basically a sign of a bad transcription, a potential hallucination.
It serves as a good proxy here, yes.
Yeah.
And Qwen2 audio showed this ability too, though slightly lower, 70.2% on LibreSpeech, 83.6% on Common Voice, also at layer 22.
Still, pretty good prediction rates.
It suggests that robust signals related to output quality are encoded deep within the decoder, like an internal error warning system.
That's a powerful internal check to find. Really opens up possibilities for catching errors earlier.
And building on that, they look specifically at hallucinations triggered by non-speech audio, feeding the model static or music.
Right. What did they find there?
They found that Whisper's decoder hidden states, particularly from layers 10 up to 28, could perfectly distinguish between real speech and non-speech inputs. 100% accuracy.
100%. Even while it was hallucinating.
Yes, even when the model was confidently spitting out coherent sounding, but totally wrong text for that non-speech input.
So there's a disconnect.
A fascinating one. The model internally knows it's not hearing speech, but its output generation process goes ahead and hallucinates anyway. A clear split between internal awareness and external behavior.
Okay, now this next part seems to challenge a really fundamental idea about how these systems work. The standard picture. Encoder handles acoustics, listening. Decoder handles language speaking.
Right. That's been the dominant view for encoder-decoder ASR, yes. A neat division of labor.
But this research seems to muddy those waters.
It really does. What's fascinating is how they used intervention-based analysis, basically, actively messing with the model's internals to see what happens.
Like poking the system to see how it reacts.
You could say that. They designed specific experiments. For instance, they created synthetic audio with ambiguous words, like sounds that could be interpreted as white lice or white rice, words where context is key.
Designed to trick the model based on context versus pure sound.
Right. Then they performed component patching. Imagine taking a tiny piece of the internal signal flow from the white rice input and replacing it with, say, just noise or the signal from a different input entirely.
Okay, swapping out internal signals.
And seeing how it affects the output. Specifically, they applied these patches to components within the encoder.
The acoustic part. And what happened? Did messing with the encoder make the contextual errors worse?
Well, this is the surprising part. Applying these patches to encoder components actually improved acoustic accuracy in many cases where the model initially made a contextual mistake.
Improved it by disrupting the encoder.
Yes. It restored accuracy in 85.0% of those error cases for Whisper and 68.1% for Qwen2 audio.
That seems completely backward to the old model.
It directly challenges that strict division, doesn't it? It strongly suggests the encoder isn't just passively listening to acoustics, it's encoding contextual or semantic information too, influencing the output much earlier than we thought.
So the encoder might already be biased towards rice instead of lice based on sentence meaning.
The findings point that way. And this led them to check directly, does the Whisper encoder understand semantics, understand meaning?
How do they test that?
Again, linear probes. But this time trained on encoder activations from synthetic audio representing different semantic categories like fruits versus clothing or countries versus weather. And they found semantic encoding became increasingly clear in the higher encoder layers. By the final encoder layer, the probes averaged 85.6% accuracy in distinguishing these categories.
That's quite high.
And some pairs were even higher, 96.7% accuracy distinguishing countries from weather or clothing.
So the encoder isn't just a sophisticated microphone. It's actually starting to make sense of the content before it even hits the decoder.
It seems so. It's embedding semantic meaning and contributing contextual bias much earlier in the pipeline. It really does adjust our understanding of where the understanding part begins.
Okay, let's shift focus again slightly to the actual process of choosing words or tokens. How does the model decide what to output next?
Right, the mechanics of token selection and also tackling that annoying problem of repetitive hallucinations.
Yeah, Those loops.
Hmm.
So first, how does it decide, and when does it really make up its mind?
They used a technique called the logit lens. It lets you peek at the raw scores the model gives to all possible next words before it picks the winner.
Like looking at its internal ranking.
Kind of, and they saw a pattern. The probability score for the actual chosen word stays pretty low until around layer 20 in both models.
So it's quite uncertain early on.
Seems that way, but after layer 20, the confidence shoots up, especially in the last 3 layers.
Interesting. Is there a specific point where it locks in?
They looked at the saturation layer. That's the first layer where the top prediction matches the final output and stays the same from then on. They found this tends to happen earlier in Whisper compared to Qwen 2 audio.
Giving us a window into the decision timeline. What about the quality of its options along the way?
Good question. They compared the top 5 candidate tokens at each layer. Whisper consistently had a lower phoneme error rate, or PER.
Meaning its candidate sounds were closer to the target sound.
Yes, indicating higher acoustic similarity among its top choices throughout the layers and across languages, compared to Qwen 2. Whisper also showed higher semantic similarity among its candidates.
So its short list of words was more related in both sound and meaning.
That's what the data suggests, yeah. A more cohesive set of options as it refines its choice.
Okay, now about those repetitive loops, where do they come from?
Right, the repetition hallucinations. Known failure, especially with noisy or repetitive audio or code switching.
Can we blame a specific part of the model?
Through causal patching and ablation, basically, tweaking or removing specific parts, they found these repetitions are highly localized.
Oh, where?
Specifically within certain cross-attention components in the Whisper decoder.
Cross-attention. That's where the decoder looks back at the encoder's output, right?
That's right. And patching interventions just on the cross-attention mechanism in layer 23 resolved 76% of the repetition cases they studied.
3/4 of them, just from layer 23 cross-attention.
Yeah. And they went even deeper, looking at individual attention heads within those layers.
Yeah.
They pinpointed head 13 in layer 18 as being particularly influential. Targeting just that one head suppressed repetitions by 78.1%.
One specific head in one layer.
Seems so. And combining interventions on layer 23 cross-attention and that specific head in layer 18 corrected 89% of the repetition examples.
Wow.
It strongly suggests cross-attention acts as a key trigger, maybe getting stuck somehow, and then self-attention might keep the loop going.
The precision there is really something. Finding one tiny component with such a big impact on a major flaw. Like finding the exact faulty switch.
It really highlights the power of these interpretability methods.
Okay, let's use another technique they employed. The encoder lens. This lets us visualize how the representation evolves through the encoder, layer by layer.
Right, it's like seeing what the decoder would output if it only got information from, say, the first 10 layers of the encoder or the first 20.
How does that work?
You essentially chop off the top layers of the encoder and feed the intermediate representation directly to the decoder. They found applying the final encoder layer normalization was key to getting coherent output here.
And what did this reveal about Whisper's encoder?
A very structured process, layers 0 to 22, mostly empty strings or maybe some punctuation, very raw.
Okay, not much understanding there.
Then layers 20 up to 27 showed something interesting. The models sometimes generated syntactically correct phrases, grammatically fine, but often totally unrelated to the actual audio. The example given was audio for, yes, I need repose, turning into, yes, I need to go to the bathroom.
Huh. Fluent nonsense?
Kind of. It suggests a phase where Whisper acts like a language model that's not fully grounded in the acoustics yet. Fluent, but unanchored.
Generating plausible sentences that just don't match the input sound.
Exactly. And then, starting around layer 27, that repetition pattern kicks in.
Loops again, even with the encoder lens.
Yes, consistent across languages, getting more intense up to layer 30, affecting about 60% of the samples they looked at.
And when does it finally produce the right transcription?
Only in the very final layers, 31 and 32. That's where the repetitions resolve and you get fluent, correct output. It shows a critical grounding happens very late in Whisper's encoder.
A very distinct journey. What about Qwen 2 Audio's encoder? Was it similar?
Quite different, actually. While its last 5 layers were also reliable, the earlier layers showed severe degradation.
How so?
A strong tendency to fall back on memorized phrases, really strongly memorized ones.
Like
The phrase, "kids are talking by the door," appeared in 390 out of 400 files they tested, no matter the input language.
wow, that specific phrase.
Yeah. And also high-frequency Chinese expressions popped up a lot, even for non-Chinese audio.
So Qwen 2 defaults to things it knows really well when it's uncertain.
It looks that way, leaning heavily on its language model component rather than the acoustic signal in those earlier encoder stages. Probably, as the paper suggests, due to imbalances or features in its training data.
Like it has these safety phrases it just grabs when lost. It really highlights fundamental differences in their internal strategies, doesn't it?
Absolutely, distinct ways of processing information and handling uncertainty as they move from sound to text.
What a truly remarkable deep dive into these hidden layers. We've uncovered this hidden knowledge about speakers and noise,
Seen evidence of internal error radars predicting hallucinations.
and fundamentally challenged that old encoder-decoder split, finding semantic understanding surprisingly early in the encoder.
This work really shows how adapting these interpretability methods from LLMs gives us unprecedented insight into ASR.
Finding localized mechanisms for complex issues like repetitions or contextual errors.
And offering powerful new tools to inspect how predictions actually evolve, layer by layer. It really challenges our basic assumptions about how these components work together.
So for you listening, as you use these AI tools, maybe Siri or Alexa or transcription services, you now have a bit more insight behind the curtain. This research shows these systems, even seemingly simple transcribers, are far more intricate internally than their outputs might suggest.
Their internal processing is incredibly rich with information, some they never even tell us about. A complex internal world.
It definitely leaves us with something to think about.
It does. If these models are encoding so much latent information, if they have these complex internal dynamics, what else might we discover as we get better at looking inside? And how might that continue to shape our understanding of what intelligence even means in AI?